I know everybody's hype and the energy level is like, yeah, we're going to say bye to 2020 and then we're going to be in 2021. But it's just a day, guys. It's honestly just a date, on paper. Things aren't going to change unless you make them change. You won't change unless you make yourself change. And so what are you going to do for yourself so that way you can draw that line in the sand and say, you know what, 2021 is not what makes 2021 different. It's my actions that make 2021 different.
As always, this episode of the It's Needed podcast is brought to you in part by Thin Line Anthem. Thin Line Anthem is a supplement brand created by first responders for first responders. New Year's Eve is right around the corner, so what better time to get quality products for a discounted price? All you have to do is go to their website, thinlineanthem.com, enter the promo code It's Needed, all capital letters, no spaces, for 25% off your entire order. I hope you enjoy the products. I know you will, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo.
That's my intro music today. From here on out. That's if we could just save that clip and then play that over every time I'm introed, I would appreciate that.
Oh, Billy. Negative. They used to do. Oh man, what's up,
going
bro?
into the new year? Going into the new year, we're gonna need new intro music though.
Coming in hot. We're joined today. We finally got the Savage back because I think last week he was gone.
Hey, Merry Christmas, everyone. Or hope you had a good Christmas.
It was funny, too, because I think my mother-in-law was listening to the podcast, and she was like, poor Billy. Why do you guys always talk about Billy?
Somebody else said that, too. I forget. Somebody on my end said that, like, y'all pick on Billy. I'm like, well, first off, we don't pick on him.
Yeah, first of all, Billy picks
Billy
on us.
Billy beats us in the background.
Yes.
I'm being held here against my will.
Billy's like Ike from the Tina Turner thing. Singing like I wrote it, anime.
Yeah. He ain't playing. Billy be beating us in the background. Y'all just don't know about it.
Oh, man. Billy be cracking that whip. We also got a special guest in studio today. And it's going to be kind of weird because we got to go back and forth. Billy forgot the other mic today. Not just playing. No, we got another special guest in the studio today, a dear friend of mine. His name is Stephen Hollowell. Now, the unique thing about Stephen is, so I legitimately met Stephen and AJ in the same weekend. I think I've said this story before.
Yep,
I actually met AJ first, and then I met Stephen the day after in St. Louis. So I met them both in St. Louis. I met AJ when we went and did a speaking engagement together. And then I met Steven the day after when I went to an ET conference, and Steven was there, with his headset banging on everybody. Like, you got to get to the back of the line. I'm like, bro, chill out.
You need to form the line here. That's what I said. And you were like, I am here. I'm like, no, here is over there. You are right here.
So Steven had got mad at me, bro, because I was like, because they didn't really have no clear delineation where the line was at. So, never mind.
Next to the piano, the line starts here. And you're like, well, I've been standing
right here. Ryan probably came in like he was running the show. Like, I'm going to just go ahead and walk on backstage, y'all.
He had on a blazer, so he was feeling himself.
I did have a blazer on. But anyways, so we got to meet. So I met ET and those guys. I went to a dinner, and then they were like, man, you got to meet Steven. And so they were like, Steven works on our team, and Steven is actually an LAPD officer because he's LAPD at the time. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'd love to meet him. And so then when they introduced me to him, in my mind, I'm like, oh, y'all just going to introduce me to the dude that just tried to bang on me about 8 hours prior to this? And so, but anyways, me and Steven.
But I came. I was all smiles at that point.
No, yeah, he was all smiles at that point.
I was like, he's law enforcement.
They already had my money at that point. So anyways, but me and Steven connected. Me and Steven started talking, and Steven became a very big support staff of mine, and I found out obviously he lived in California, so we connected ever since. And then that was right around the time that me and AJ were talking about doing this podcast. And so I start brainstorming with Steven because Steven, like I said, he was around ET's crew for a while, and they do a lot of different things. And so Steven legitimately was at our first recording of our podcast in my old bedroom of my house. And so today is Steven's first time in our actual studio, so it's kind of cool for him because he gets to kind of see where we've grown.
This place is legit.
I think it's been 2 years now, almost 2 years now that since we went from the bedrooms to the studio. And then also I would always bounce things off of Steven as far as like podcast content, how many episodes we should record. So remember, we started with once a month, then we went to twice a month, and then the podcast continued to grow. And then
I was hard on you. I was like, hey, you got to make sure that you're able to keep it up. Don't take off more than you can chew.
Yeah, he was like, oh, this might be a little bit much.
Be ready.
And knowing me, I'm like, man, let's go for it. And so I talked to AJ, and we were like, let's do it. And so we went to 4 days a month or once a week, and we haven't looked back since. I don't think we have missed a week since we've made that decision.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So tell us what it's like to be there day one, and you in Ryan's bedroom, and I probably was in the living room with like a laptop on my lap probably. And now to see like this, like tell us.
Oh, this is like crazy because you get to see, and then Ryan's kids are walking in like, "Daddy, this is great," blah blah blah. So just being out of the house and then seeing like there's different walls for different things in the studio. For the first thing I walked in, and Ryan will tell you I don't give compliments. That's just not my thing. I only give real life.
He's a cop. He's a real cop.
This is this looks good, deal. But it looks real legit. They have like a little like sound wall thing kind of going on here, and look at that. You bought that. He bought that from the.
This was one of the first. Yeah, that's
the first piece that I got. He paid a lot of money for that. He almost cried. He was like,
so that's the BBU emblem.
Yeah, if this don't look good on camera, I don't know, because I put out some money.
It did hurt. Yeah, that hurt my pocketbook a little bit.
Probably dropping a bucket now. That's nuts.
Yeah, right. Please. But anyway,
and go ahead. I thought it was metal for the longest time. I thought it was like on sheet metal until I got there.
No, it's acrylic. Oh, it's acrylic, but everybody thinks it's metal.
It's beautiful.
They always thought that too. So
yeah, it's sweet. Yeah,
what is this, velvet?
What is it? Velvet? Speaking of that, Coming to America coming out. What is it? March? Coming to America 2?
Bruh, with like the original cast.
Yeah, man,
that's too dope.
Did you see the preview?
She's your queen to be.
Billy, have you seen Coming to America?
I have, but
only once. He hasn't watched it 20 times. You have to watch it.
Why do I automatically go and ask Billy? Like,
I knew that was coming.
We did it at the exact same time. Real quick, Billy.
Savage. Have you seen that?
Oh man,
Billy ain't seen it. He lying.
Oh man. So
yeah, I seen it.
I know, right? But hey, you know what? As we get started, I kind of just today I wanted to just kind of be like a recap of the year, and since we already been talking about accomplishments, we'll obviously definitely talk about some law enforcement stuff. Probably take a journey back into the beginning of the year to some of the headlines and things like that. So today, we didn't really have a strategy coming into today. I thought we kind of just freestyle it because. It's kind of cool to come to the end of the year and just look back at what we've accomplished this year. And even, prior to 2020, 2019, and just to see where we're going, I think it's just a phenomenal place. And it's kind of ironic that Steven's here when Steven was one of the first guys when I made that decision to start doing what I was doing. And so it's just cool, man. It's just cool. So.
Yeah. And, this year will always be special to me because this was the year my son was born. So it's kind of hard to look back, right? Like it will be kind of hard to look back at 2020 despite all the horrible things that happened and all the tough times and say it was a bad year when that was the year where something so monumental happened in my life.
Yeah. It's been interesting to say the least, man. And then, COVID-19, and what's crazy is it's already going to be a year since COVID-19 really made its way into the States, officially speaking. I think January was when all this talk started happening, and then actually it was really December, but December of last year was when it was going on in China and nobody was really paying attention to it. And then it started making the chatter start talking about it coming and spreading, and then that was January, and then February, like we were full blown pretty much into it. Mm-hmm. So, and then I think it was February that Kobe passed away.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
January,
and COVID had hit like right around
something.
Yeah. And COVID did hit right around February because it was as soon as we brought Tristan home, that's when it was like really like blew up and they were like, okay, you can't bring like visitors in the hospital. So we really, really lucked out because our parents were able to come up and whatnot. So it was like right around like the late February.
So we had Kobe's death, and then you move forward, you had the COVID, and then after COVID, you fast forward to May, and then that's when you had George Floyd, the death of George Floyd. And I still remember I woke up just seeing these images of an officer with a knee on his neck, and people were saying, and that was crazy because it literally seemed like that just gained steam so fast.
Overnight. I mean, yeah, because you called me super early in the morning.
Yeah.
And you sent me the link. Yeah, I had no idea what you were talking about. I was like wiping sleep on my eyes. Like, bro, what are you talking about? And yeah, we watched it and, talked about it early in the morning. And yeah, that blew up overnight, man. Like that was like a match in a thing of gasoline. Like that was just boom.
So let me ask you guys before we move forward, like, what do you guys think about the George Floyd situation was different from some of the other, police uses of excessive force? Like, what do you think made the entirety of that situation different? Because if we look back in history books in 20 years from now, I think that people are going to look back to that moment that actually changed the way of a lot of what's going on in law enforcement. But my question is what about that moment specifically changed it? Was it just a lot of stuff brewing and that was just kind of the smoking gun that set everything off on fire? Was it something about the moment itself that really like fueled people up? Do you think it was the political climate? Like, what do you think is what separates George from like the Rodney King or, Philando Castile or things like that?
I believe
I'll let y'all go.
I believe it was two things: the political climate, and then the officer's face, or lack of empathy, or there was a lack of something. He appeared to be empty to folks and non-responsive at the way. Even if he believed there was a reason for placing his knee wherever he placed it, I think his face, the way he came off, was very empty and very cold. I think that's what bothered everyone.
Well, and how all those things and how long it drew out. It was like, what, 8 minutes, 40 something seconds of like him sitting there like that, and there's other officers around like not doing anything.
Yeah.
I think it was how long it took out. Because a bad shooting happens in an instant. Right. But this video, you're sitting there and like, it's kind of
it was hard to watch
yeah.
For 8 minutes. Yeah, you're watching this.
My dad always brings up that point, like the officers were like sitting around and doing that, but those guys were not really looking at him.
They had their backs to it.
Yeah, they were. So the time people were yelling at them, people were doing things that they needed to focus on. So their response to it, they were not looking in that guy's direction at all. You could pull all kind of tape or footage. They weren't looking. So that's gonna be,
Yeah. What about you, AJ?
Yeah, I think it was the perfect storm. I think the political climate definitely played into it because there's so many different aspects that just goes into that alone. I think the second thing is the time in which it happened, like right after COVID. So people were already just generally frustrated and upset. There's a financial strain, there's a mental strain, and everything that went along with that. And then I think Stephen hit it right on the head as far as like the lack of like compassion that the officer shown, because a lot of uses of force are, very violent and fast, like whether it's a shooting, you pull the trigger, it takes a couple of seconds, or even if it's like a fight, like there's like some sort of back and forth, where the officer's rolling around and they're throwing punches, but this was kind of one of the first ones where you seen the officer was just in control the entire time, and the guy was just like, hey, I can't breathe, and like Billy said, it drew out for so long. I think when you combine all of those, it was the perfect storm for exactly what happened.
And so I think I agree with all you guys, and I also think too, what made that one so different from what we've seen in the past is that was actually the first time I saw like a use of force involving law enforcement that I don't know one officer that actually tried to justify it. Like when you see a use of force, you always typically hear the officers, well, we don't know about this, we don't know about that yet, or this or that. I didn't really hear the excuses trying to justify his behavior. I did hear some saying, well, you know, he died from the drugs or this or that, but I don't think anybody actually like just let Chauvin off the hook, including officers, which is different. And so sadly though, is that actually should be looked upon from a societal standpoint as progression, because that would show, hey, officers are actually recognizing the wrong that officers are done, but yet it was almost a reverse effect.
So that's quite ironic. Everyone acknowledges it, and we get the backlash that we got as officers, as a society. That's so weird. That's super weird to me.
Yeah, because we got the reverse effect where it was more of, now everybody is becoming completely enraged at officers and is giving them excuses to act however they want. So anyways, you fast forward from George Floyd, what George Floyd set off was just a chain of events around the world with protests, you know, protests, one of which, you know, got my brother AJ over here hurt. And, you know, all these, you know, planned protests, you know, BLM showing up, and, you know, and I think this year BLM went to a completely, from what it was, I mean, I never was really for BLM like that, just because I always knew their fundamental principles. But I think this year really exposed what they were truly about.
And I never really knew their fundamental principles, but I think if you highlight one race and say that their lives matter, I always thought that was weird. Just being a police officer for over 15 years, I'm like, you can't highlight one race for so long and then make that be something good. That's always gonna have a strike and downfall, and it did.
And it kind of contradicts itself with the statement Black Lives Matter, and then the fact that there's no mission statement that specifically says that are assaulted or killed by police, because that's their focus, you know, truth be told. Like, you don't see Black Lives Matter at, you know, these neighborhood shootings, the 169 murders that happened here in Columbus, whatever percentage of those, you know, the victims were Black. Like, you don't see them at these homicide scenes, but yet when a police officer uses force, whether it's deadly or, you know, whatever level of force, like, that's when they show up. So it would make more sense to me, you know, if they put out a mission statement and said, our mission statement is we're going to stand up for Black lives when they're interacting with police. That, you know what, I would say I'll get behind that, but I would understand it. Okay, you got a clear mission statement, but the fact that they're saying, like, you need to understand, like, Black Lives Matter, it's like, okay, but like, well, what about when this happened, or what about when that happened? The so many other things that happen that aren't police related. Like, it's really contradicting in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's what's so frustrating for me is I would always say it seems like Black lives only matter when it's convenient. You know, when it's easy to say. Me and Steven were having a conversation yesterday, and we were basically saying, like, I don't know, I'm sure this has happened to you, AJ, but people will approach you and they'll tell you, well, I'll tell you this, like, but I can't say this out loud because I'll get, you know, criticized or whatever, but I'll tell you, like, oh man, I really support what you're doing, or man, if I was a police officer, I would have did what he did too, but I can't say that out publicly. And it's almost frustrating because it's like, well, why can't you say it out publicly? Because why? It's not popular, and because what? You're going to get blacklisted if you don't?
Yeah. You know, one of the weirdest things happened to me, and listen, I've found myself in very unique situations just because, like, the way I was raised to who I am now, being biracial, like all sorts of things. I found myself in very unique situations. But during or after the George Floyd incident, I found myself in one of the most unique, odd situations ever. And it was me standing in full riot gear in downtown Columbus. And it's a line of officers. There's probably like 20 officers. We're all in riot gear. And the officer to the right of me is a friend of mine. And he is probably 6'4", 6'5", dark skin, like dark skin. The officer to the left of me is a little more lighter, like maybe around like Ryan's complexion, male black.
Yeah, caramel
officer
chocolate.
Well, you know, I wouldn't go that far, but you know, something like that. But in full uniform, and directly in front of us are like 5 to 10, and I'm just talking about directly in front of us, not the crowd of hundreds, right? But just like directly in front of us are like 5 or 10 teenage, early 20-year-old female whites who were screaming at us about how Black Lives Matter. And it was so bizarre to me. I'm like, hold on. Me being a black man, both officers on the left and right being black in full uniform, getting lectured about how Black Lives Matter by a white female. Like, something ain't adding up right here.
That's
like,
exactly what I was about to say. Same thing happened to me. You know, they're marching down the street, standing at the 10 freeway, and they march past me, and I'm just the only black officer. One white lady,
which is worse.
One white lady comes to my face and tells me, "Black Lives Matter," and I was like, I must be in a Punk'd episode because
That's what I'm saying. It's like
the only black person in the vicinity, and you're telling me that my life matters. Thank you. I have confidence.
I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Like, this is so bizarre to me. Like, but you know, once again, like, I feel like it was the perfect storm where I feel like a lot of white people didn't know what to do, right? Like, they were like, well, this is wrong. We need to stand up and do something about it.
So is it acceptable to yell at black people when you're white that Black Lives Matter?
And that's and that's what kind of like me and my wife were having an interesting conversation last night where we were talking about when these things happen, it causes this crazy knee-jerk reaction, and we just go like from one extreme to the opposite extreme. For example, like we were talking about, so what started this conversation, I'm probably going to lose some followers after this, but what started the conversation was we were watching Wonder Woman over the weekend, the new one.
I already know where you're going with this.
Now, it was a cool movie, but it was just different for me. Like, it's different from watching like some crazy like male like superheroes just freaking wrecking shop, throwing cars everywhere, punching people in the face. Like, Wonder Woman was very like,
she would sit down and talk to the villain.
Yeah, it was just different. It was good. It was a good movie, and like there was action in it, but it was not like the traditional. So we got on this topic of talking about women's rights, and I was like, it felt like the movie was catered towards the women's rights movement, which I get. Almost like if you see when you watch the end game of Avengers, that last scene where all the
females come out. Yeah.
It was like almost like a subliminal, a woman power type thing, which I'm cool with. But at the same time, it's like, I think sometimes, because there's this whole concept of demasculinization of men, and making men like almost demasculinizing us, making it seem like, hey, no, like you are now subservient to us.
Being masculine is bad.
Being masculine is bad. Villainizing
toxic
it and stuff like
masculinity.
Yeah, and so it seems like you move into that realm because and my wife, she brought up a valid point, but you got to realize like women have been oppressed for so long in so many different ways where, you know, they didn't make the same wages, they were kept that they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that, and I get it. So I'm like, I understand that side of it, but at the same time, you can't just completely go far right now and say, okay, well, we're just gonna supersede men now, or, you know, like this or that, and men shouldn't do this. It's the same thing when you're having the conversation about black people. Is like, yeah, I get it. We were slaves. We weren't treated right. We didn't have equal rights. But now all of a sudden, we shouldn't start forcing people now where white people are like, Black Lives Matter, and now they're making stuff or making videos and stuff just for the sake of acknowledging, yep, your Black Lives Matter more than any other person's life now. Like, I think there's no balance to it.
Like me and AJ's experience, you could pull hundreds of clips of white women and men, probably in their young 20s, yelling at black officers on riot lines during the George Floyd.
Yeah,
that's
screaming.
That should not happen. I'm gonna say that should not happen.
Yeah.
There's
as
nowhere,
a black man, yes.
You're not helping me at any point by just yelling at me to tell me that my life mattered. That's crazy. You should feel crazy.
That happened to me too. When the dude told me, I walked out of the donut shop. Yes, it was a donut shop. I got acai bowl. But anyways,
yeah, it's nice. Acai bowl.
Yeah, bomb.
Yeah, right.
But when I walked, whatever. So when I walked out, but the dude was like, you know, where's your mask at? And then he went on to say, oh, F the police, F you pig, Black Lives Matter. And the dude is not even black. And I'm like, I'm confused. And so then I went to the city hall meeting, and this was like a couple weeks after George Floyd, and all these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, some even were 16, 17, and they're lobbying, defund the police, get rid of the funding, and all out of emotion just because they're riding this emotional wave.
Yeah.
There was a girl that said,
what irony is, being downtown during a George Floyd protest, picking up a scooter out of anger and throwing it at a police officer and injuring him, that police officer being a black man who does a ton for the black community.
Yep.
But that is like, when this happened, it just seemed like it stripped so much logic away from people. So much logic was just stripped away from people. And there's this old saying, like, never let your emotions overpower your intelligence. And this is like a prime example of like so many people were running on pure emotions that they forgot their intelligence at the house.
Well, that kind of goes back to the point at that city hall meeting where the girl was like, I'm just so afraid of police that, and she legitimately said this in front of a live audience. She was like, I'm just so afraid of police that, I mean, if an armed robber were to break into my house, I don't know if I would call the police because I'm more afraid that they would kill me than the armed robber.
That's not true.
That's not.
That's
just
true.
flat out
It's not true because guess what? We don't receive any less calls for service.
No,
we receive more.
Yeah, they go, hello, such and such.
We receive more.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part about it is like these people who are screaming defund the police are the same ones calling us because their neighbor's playing loud music and you afraid to go over there and knock on his door.
Yes.
And you're not afraid of the police. And I'll tell you why. Once I said this on a previous podcast, like I'm afraid of other people's dogs. So guess what I do when I go over somebody's house? I say, hey, is your dog up? I'm not coming inside if your dog is around.
Please
you know why?
secure your
Because
dog.
I'm afraid of people's dogs. You ain't afraid of the police.
Bro,
you know why?
afraid of people's dogs? You got a trap dog.
Yeah, but it's
Pitbull.
my dog.
It's his
like
dog.
it's my
I
dog.
always
Like
say-
I raised that dog.
People are like, come on in. I said, secure your dog, ma'am.
Yeah, put that dog. I'm
Secure your
not
dog.
messing with nobody's dog. Like, oh, he don't bite. I heard that before.
Right.
I heard that.
And he's growling at you right at the same
You're
moment.
right. He's foaming at the mouth looking at me like I'm a steak. Like, you better stop playing with me. But that just goes to show, like, you're not afraid of the police because you're currently in a police officer's face screaming at him. If you were truly afraid of the police, you'd be way down the street with a megaphone. Like, yeah, everybody else go over there and get them. You ain't afraid of the police. Like, stop lying.
So let me ask you guys this then. So we know, obviously, all of us are police officers, and I think I mentioned earlier, Stevens mentioned it a few times that he's a police officer currently. And how long you been a police officer now, Steve?
Ooh, I just hit my 17th year mark.
Oh wow! So he's
You know, OG.
November 17th.
So he's been in it a minute, and he worked LAPD, which LAPD, man, I mean, he's seen some stuff working at LAPD. So very experienced officer. So what I'm getting at, my next question for you guys is going to be this, is like, we all acknowledge, like, there's a lot of people in the community that react based off of emotion, not logic. There was a lot of that seen in these protests with George Floyd and all these other ones. But there's obviously places that we can improve upon in law enforcement. So what are some things that we should start doing within law enforcement to improve law enforcement? Because we can't sit here and say, oh, law enforcement is perfect and we really don't need as much changes as people think. I think we need a lot of changes, if I'm being honest.
If I'm being honest, when I first came on, sorry, AJ, when I first came on the department, I feel like we were more engaged at talking to people. Like we knew how to talk to people. So now we come into a world of technology and social media, and the young police officers do not know how to engage people with their voice and talk. And actually, they want quick fix. Okay, you need a report. You don't need a report. We gonna make an arrest. We not gonna make an arrest. If that's it, I'm out. It's like, well, that's going to be counterproductive to this movement that we're on. So we're going to have to teach people how to engage and actually like it and enjoy it.
So it would be safe to say for me, if I have to say what's a way that we can improve law enforcement, one of the ways that we can improve law enforcement is by officers being less robotic and learning how to talk to people. I say it all the time because I've seen officers go out there and they all of a sudden stop knowing how to treat people like human beings, and they get into this mode of checking this box, checking that box. This person is out to kill me. Yes, don't get me wrong. You should always have in the back of your mind that a person could potentially bring harm to you. However, that doesn't mean that's what you exude. So every time I talk to people, I'm always talking to them like they're my mom, my cousin, even from the most gangster person I've met on the street to the most, soccer mommist person I'm driving to meet on a traffic stop. Talk to them like human beings. And so what we have to do as law enforcement officers, if you're listening to this, one of the ways that we can improve is you got to be able to talk to people. And if you can't talk to people, this is not the job for you. I'm sorry. Because when you do not know how to talk to people, what you start to do is you start to resort to things that you shouldn't be resorting to, like using force when you don't need to, or you escalate a situation into where you have to use force, which you could have easily got out of if you would have just knew how to use your voice. And so I think that also goes back to the experience aspect, the life experience of why it's so important to possess a level of life experience prior to law enforcement, because I think that's probably one of my strongest attributes is my ability to effectively communicate with people. That's not to say that I don't have to use force, because I've had to use force with people. But what I do know is that my ability to be able to bring a situation down is probably a strong attribute that I have that I think a lot of officers need. What about you, AJ? Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to interrupt our podcast episode briefly to highlight our podcast sponsor, which is Thin Line Anthem. When you guys support them, it supports us, and they are a phenomenal business that is created by first responders for first responders to promote health and wellness. And so I take their products. My wife takes their products. I'm feeling a lot better. I've actually lost some weight, and I'm actually gaining strength in the gym. So if you guys want to start that journey to health and wellness, make sure you guys subscribe to Thin Line Anthem products. Go on to thinlineanthem.com. Utilize promo code It's Needed. All caps, no spaces. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of this episode.
So that was something that I learned early in my career is I would like latch onto these like senior officers who I thought were like extremely successful police officers. Like, they were out here, they were go-getters, they were kicking in doors, they were taking away like the real criminals, but they had respect from the community. And I would always like try to dissect, like, man, like what is it about this officer, like this group of officers that they have? And it was their ability to talk to people. No matter what the circumstance was, whether it was somebody who was like on 10 ready to fight with them or some kid playing basketball, like they were comfortable enough to communicate with that person successfully. And that was the key to their success. But since you two already like touched on that, I'll say there's two other things that we really, 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 really need as a profession to move forward successfully after this year. And those two things will be, the first is cultural competency. Like I'm a huge advocate for cultural competency. And the only reason I say that is I've personally seen officers who become police officers and go into an area as a police officer in which they're not comfortable because they're not comfortable with that culture, which in return causes so many other issues because now you're in this area where you're uncomfortable with the culture, but you're an authority figure and maybe you're more scared, or maybe you're more timid, or maybe you don't understand certain things that the culture does that are normal in this area, but not for you. So therefore you're more likely to have a use of force or to get into an argument or to escalate a situation instead of de-escalating the situation without knowing you're doing it. So I'm a huge advocate for that. I'm a huge advocate for cultural competency.
Before you go to the next one, AJ, I want to stay on cultural competency for a minute. So keep that third one in mind, but I want to stay here for a second because cultural competency is a huge thing. And I don't think, this is the example I always use for cultural competency. So when my wife and I got married, me and my wife come from two different cultures. I'm black, my wife is Hispanic and Filipino. So with that comes a level of learning each other's different ways that you grew up culturally. So in my culture, one of the things that we typically do is we talk loud, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, but we talk loud
and with our hands.
With our hands, we do a lot of,
animation,
gesticulation. Yeah, exactly.
Animation.
And what I like to refer to it as is almost in a sense like a dialect. So for example, like when me and my sisters are talking, or you go to a family party and everybody's talking loud, everybody yelling, we ain't no conflict there. Like we just talking loud. But if Billy come in, I'm gonna use Billy.
Oh, Billy.
I'm gonna use Billy.
Savage.
But and Billy walks in. Billy like, oh my goodness, guys, chill out. Like, I don't know why I did that.
Is everything okay, guys?
Yeah. But Billy might come in and be like, man, like, whoa, like, chill out, y'all. Like, why are y'all arguing? And me and Steven might be like, we're not arguing. Like,
I'm just the best domino player. That's it.
Exactly. Like, no, I got 15. He needs to get my 15 put on the paper.
I'm about to hit you with the 20.
But we cool. Like, we are conversing with our hands, a lot of emotion. So when me and my wife got married, go ahead.
Even the things that we say, sometimes it's not even like how we say it, but like what we say. Like I remember talking to one of my homeboys and we were like going back and forth and I was like, hey, I'll body slam the life out of you. You better quit playing with me.
Yeah.
And then we both started laughing. And afterwards my wife was like, everything okay? And I was like, oh no, we was playing.
Yeah.
Like that's how we talk.
Exactly.
So
so me and my wife, same thing. Like I would talk to my sister a certain way. We'd be talking loud. She'd be like, why are you being so mean? Or like, why are y'all talking? I'm like, that's just how we are. So when she started, and so when I'm talking at home, she'd be like, why are you yelling? And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not yelling. Like I'm not, I'm just talking. I just talk loud. And so that was like, so now my wife, we almost married 9 years now. She understands now like that dialect that we have. And so I use that example as when you're an officer going into, and I'm going to say like the black community, and you don't really know much about the black community, you might take two guys talking loud with their hands being animated as, oh shoot, I'm in fear, like this dude is about to start tripping. Whereas I roll up and I'm like, oh man, this is cool, this is how they talk, whatever it may be. And so that level of cultural competency allows me to get to the problem, the root of the issue, and meet them on their level, as opposed to escalate it, because I think that something more is going on than what it really is. And it's not just the black culture, it's a Hispanic culture, it's any culture, even the white culture. I'm sure if I walked into Billy's house, there might be things that I don't understand. I'm like, you know, but that level of cultural competency, I think is so important. And here's the other half of that is that if I'm a young guy, 21 years old, 22 years old, don't really have any friends outside of my own culture, if most of the people I spend my time with are people that look like me, sound like me, talk like me, and the only time I've ever gone out of my circle is if I'm like out and about doing something, but I'm not really spending time with the other cultures. When you get into a profession like this and you start finding yourself spending a lot more time with these other cultures that you don't know anything about, it's going to raise your level of suspicion that much more, because it's the fear of the unknown. And so when all you know is what you see on TV, and unfortunately, you know, systematically in many ways, you know, black people, Hispanic people, you name it, have been portrayed as angry, mean, this and that. You fall back to those preconceived biases that you don't even realize exist. And so now you have a fear level that you didn't even realize existed until you're put in a position where you're like, man, the last time I seen somebody like this dude did something really, really bad. As opposed to realizing like, oh man, this is just how they talk. You know what I mean? Steven, what you got on that?
I mean, that's where field training officers really come into play. I mean, as much as you want to be the best guy that you know how to be, and you don't want to be racist or you don't want to be biased, your field training officer has to explain these things to you. They have to be able to break it down. What you just saw right there is someone getting loud, talking, opposed to someone being violent. Did you see his hands? Was his hands looking like he was going to punch you? Did he tense up? Did he ice glaze you? Did he do those things that let you know that I need to be in a fight? Any culture can show you, display those things, and then you should be ready to fight. But it has to be, especially with these new generation, you have to show them. You can't just tell them in a video. You have to be like, remember that last call we were on?
This is the Roll Star hip hop generation where they see all these violent videos and they
have never lived.
They've never.
Yeah. But that's the trick bag you get into, is a lot of these individuals we're talking about have seen these videos but never experienced these videos.
Is real violence ever that like big? When I've been in real violent situations, they don't look like much of nothing. It's kind of just calm. It's not calm, but there's a sense of not like TV. That I always tell people, when someone's going to shoot you or someone's going to be real violent, it's going to be kind of quiet. It's going to be kind of unreal.
And that's where that experience comes in. And then it's like, I was talking to my supervisor last night about having never been in a fight before law enforcement. And then the moment you get in that first fight, like, what are you going to do? And sometimes it's too late for people to figure out what they're going to do because they don't know how they're going to react. Like, if you've never been punched in the face, how do you know how you're going to react if you've never been punched in the face?
Yeah, I mean, a punch in the face that could lead to something even worse. It's just scuffle, 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 scuffle. Then he's going for your gun. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look big. It's not like TV.
So what's your third one? Oh, go ahead. My bad.
That's something our academy used to do. They may still do it, but I'm not sure.
We still do it.
But back when I went through it, our academy would ask, they would rush us all in the boxing room. There's like 2 boxing rings, and we're all like geared up, and they would say like, hey, who here has never been in a fight, like an actual fight? And you'd see people raise their hands, and they'd go, okay, you gear up, warm up. And then they'd be like, who has been in a fight? And people would raise their hands. They'd be like, you get in there. And they just want to see how you act. Like, if you get socked in the face, are you just going to cover up? Or you going to start throwing back? Are you going to back up? You going to start moving, dipping and dodging? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to react? Because as Steven said, that one punch in the face might be a punch in the face in this training environment. But outside, it could be that knockout blow that costs you your life because now your weapon is exposed and now they have it. So,
Yep. I agree. They still do that. Go to your third one.
So my third one was we have to stop backing the police no matter what. We have to stop that, and that might be like a very hard pill to swallow to a lot of police officers. And I'm not saying we shouldn't give police officers the benefit of the doubt. Please don't confuse the two. But what I am saying is we have to stop backing police officers no matter what. We have to admit fault, and we have to be willing to call that fault out in order to gain trust from the community. I've done it before. It's been hard. I'm not going to lie, right? Like, we're going to keep it real like we always have on this podcast. It's very hard, but like, you have to do it. I've done it, and it's gained me a lot of trust in the community and inside the department because people know that I'm going to do my best to remain unbiased and call a spade a spade.
Yep. And you hit that nail so hard on the head, man, because that's probably one of the hardest things about what I do. People always ask, what's one of the most difficult things that you do, right? Like, I get that question a lot. And one of the most difficult things I do is being able to call out some of the wrong in our profession. And some might ask, well, why is that so hard? That should be easy to do. Well, think about your day job. Are you going to be that person that walks into your day job? Let's say you're working at, McDonald's and somebody's doing some shady business back there. Are you going to be that person that goes and calls them out and exposes them right away? Because then how are you going to look towards your other, partners that work there and stuff like that? And that's just a very small example.
But how many people are willing to tell on their McDonald's coworker?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not. I guess it's not as easy as people want to say it is. And I'm not saying like it's the right thing to do, no doubt about it. But when people say, "Oh, y'all should be able to do this, y'all should be able to do that," it's not as easy as you think it is. Not only because that it's just not a popular thing to do, but in our profession, if I call somebody's actions out and I find myself in a controversial situation, all that stuff that I've said, every content that I put out, all the stuff I do, I can now be the subject of criticism because at one moment in time I said this, but yet I did this. And so it's not always as easy as people think to call people out, especially as a current police officer. When I'm not a police officer, all day I can say whatever the heck I want to say.
Plus we have experiences that tell us that there may be more to the story. So like when we immediately speak out about something, right? Like say a video comes out and we're like, oh no, that's wrong. We're going to stand up. We're going to do what's right. Like we put ourselves in a position to where when the facts come out, because we've all been in investigations where we can't speak up or the facts weren't all put out. When the facts come out later, then it's like, well, hey, AJ, remember you said that about this video? Well, what you going to say now that these facts are out? And it kind of proves that the officer was doing what he or she was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so it's a very unique trick bag to be in, but at the end of the day, like that's what we do. And, we do it for a reason. So, we're going to continue to do it, but it definitely is difficult.
So those are things that we can do now to improve law enforcement. So we talked about the things that civilians can do, talked about improvements for law enforcement. What are some personal development things that we can do on an individual level to just get better as people? One of the things I always strive to do is trying to be better. I guess you can say and Stephen brought up earlier, the empathetic approach to people, not always treating people like less than. It was interesting. I went to I went to a nice golf course over the weekend. I'll just keep it at that.
Surprise.
Hollywood in here.
Yeah, whatever.
I think you posted a picture on your Instagram, right?
Yeah, I took it down though. I took it down.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I took
okay.
it down.
I was about to go
I'll tell
check
you
it
why
out.
But
I'll redact my statement then.
But so anyways, I went to a nice golf course over the weekend, and when I was there, I was talking to one of the guys, and he works there. He's been working there for 9 years. I was like, man, this has got to be a pretty cool like gig for you. I mean, you sit here and you probably see like celebrities all the time, influential people walk through here because like I said, it's a legit golf course. And he's like, yeah, man, 99% of the time it's cool. He was like, but there's always that 1% of people, man, that just treat me like I'm
dirt.
Yeah, dirt. He was like, I've had people come in here before and throw their golf shoes and say, hey, I need these cleaned by tomorrow. And like don't acknowledge them nothing. I was like, man. And so in my mind I'm just thinking like, as a human, I never want to find myself getting to a spot where I've just arrived and I've now all of a sudden forgot about everybody else. And I'll be honest and admit, like, there are times that, because we're human beings, there are times that each and every one of us can become self-centered in certain aspects. But you got to remind yourself, I have to remind myself, like, it's not all about me. It's not. And I got to put other people before myself. And so as a police officer, one of the things that I want to do on an individual level is always remember that the community comes before me. Like, and as hard as that pill is to swallow sometimes, my service to them comes before myself. That's what I signed up to do. I'm a public servant. And so, not getting all caught up in, I watched a video over the weekend. AJ knows what video I'm talking about. And I saw the actions of an officer, I should say the non-actions of an officer, basically watch somebody die because they were caught up in the way of what was going to happen to them and the way they felt, without disclosing a lot of it. And again, I think this officer was going through a lot of emotional stuff in his own head, but sometimes you got to put other people's before yourself, because it will cause you to do things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So on a personal level, I think that's what I want to continue to work on.
Yeah, I think you're good at that in the law enforcement world. I don't think I'm as good when I'm at work, but when I'm off, I'm super aware. Like, I went to Nashville and I went to this restaurant and they were like, I'm so glad to be open, that, due to COVID, and my family, we were at home and couldn't work for 3 months. And then I told you this yesterday, being in law enforcement, I'm so grateful that I can come to work and get a paycheck. And so just being aware of people's situations in life, not just when you're the police, but like every day, all the time. The custodians at the police station, hello, good afternoon. People were shining shoes at the police station. Hey, how you doing? How's your day? Tipping a little bit extra. Like, everybody
Hold up.
is somebody.
Y'all got shoe shiners at the police station?
And they come on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Damn, we know. Hey, but you gotta know where this man works at, though.
I can't tell you where I work, but I work
Let
someplace
me
nice.
just put it like this. They got a beach in their backyard.
I work someplace nice.
He said on two. Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that later.
Even in LAPD, we had shoe shiners on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Because he worked at LAPD for so many years.
Yeah,
but now where he works, bro, they got an ocean, bro.
Yeah, I'm tripping. I'm stuck about that.
It's just a person that comes and just sets up shop, and we give them a place. And even at LAPD, Tuesday, I think theirs was like every Wednesday that guy came. And maybe it's a California thing. You don't have that?
It must be. I ain't never heard of that.
No, it ain't.
Never heard of
that, bro.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is one guy told me, he's like, you know why I like this other particular officer? Because no matter what he's going through on that day, he always stops, looks to his right, and says, how are you doing today? And there's 25, 30 police officers that walk past me and don't say anything. And that's not about police work. That has nothing to do with police work. It's about caring for people. But when you're in the zone, even when you're in the field, because of the stories you tell me, you stay in that zone. I don't always stay in that zone. You talking to me crazy. I'm talking to you like, hey, you better get your mind right, because it's not going to be good. But
I know how to do that. Matter of fact, my partner last week was like, Ryan, I didn't know you can get like that. I was like, hey, bro, Don't take the
every now and then.
I was like, hey,
every now and then.
You got to know where I grew up at, man. Don't
And
take
then,
the
but
credit where weakness.
the craziest thing is people respond well when they know, like, hey, this guy's no nonsense.
Oh, yes.
It's not
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna keep it going.
Yeah.
But I digress. But yeah, because we're going to the side. But treating people kind, just all people.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So is this something that I could do or something that like just general people could do to improve themselves?
Something that, I mean, you could do general people because we got people listening, or yourself. It don't matter.
My biggest thing is comfort kills. Like you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable, and that will like affect like so many different aspects of your life, even like with the whole like cultural competency thing that we were talking about, like the moment that you become comfortable being uncomfortable will be the moment that you're comfortable going into these communities and saying, hey, I don't really know why y'all be at the barbecue talking like this and clapping your hands and doing all of that, but can you give me a hip? Like, can you show me? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hey,
can you break it down for
I
me?
want Billy to say that one time for me.
Just like that.
Say what I just said, Billy.
He said, nope.
He's like,
No,
no, we're not going to
can't
cross
do.
that line, guys.
Yeah.
We're not gonna,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I see
mean,
why people think you guys give Billy a hard time. I see it.
But they don't know. Like, Billy really bullies us. Like, Billy called me one day and was like, hey, I need you to get your life right. Like, your audio ain't sounding good. And I was like, Billy, first off, can we have a conversation about this? Like, I'm balling on a budget
He's
here,
like,
Billy. Like,
you're making me work too hard during the editing, babe.
Billy
so
was
you
like,
need to
look,
fix
turn your
it.
AC off. I can hear the AC in the background. All right.
That Midwest AC.
I'll be down here sweating. Like, yeah, guys.
Billy said I can't have any air conditioning.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So Billy,
No,
Billy
I love
gives it
that.
back.
I love that, man. And so, I know this episode has been a little bit different, but I think it was good to just reflect on, what are some of the things we've learned over 2020 going into the new year. And just realize, too, that I know everybody's hype and the energy level is like, yeah, we're going to say bye to 2020 and then we're going to be in 2021. But it's just a date, guys. It's honestly just a date, on paper. Things aren't going to change unless you make them change. You won't change unless you make yourself change. And so what are you going to do for yourself so that way you can draw that line in the sand and say, you know what, 2021 is not what makes 2021 is not what makes 2021 different. It's my actions that make 2021 different. And so I think that's one of the lessons that people need to learn.
So just to switch it up, I know we're getting close to the end of the podcast. We made it a whole year. We made it through 2020. We got 4 days left of the year.
Yep.
So a lot of people decide to change for the better on the first. A lot of people are like, I got my New Year's resolution. I'm going to execute. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be a better father. I'm going to be a better husband, whatever, right? Mother, whatever. So with that said, can we leave our audience with some tips or some motivation or some encouragement or anything going into this next year? Like Ryan, Steven, Billy, like what can y'all say to every single one of our listeners to get them ready for the first, to start fresh and to keep it going in a positive direction?
I'm going to start with Steven.
In order to have change, you have to change. So a lot of people want change, but they want to stay the same. They want to do the same stuff. Like,
everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die.
No, right. I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday, but I want to change. I want my spirit to change. In order for your spirit to have to change, you have to take different actions that lead towards a better spirit. So, in order to change, that's me.
That's good.
I like it. Billy,
what you got?
Billy needs a mic.
Coming over. Start today. You don't have to wait for January 1st. I think people plan, but it's about starting. So right now.
Right now.
Don't wait till the first.
Right now.
What you got, AJ?
Oh man, you both had really good ones. So I'm gonna switch mine up last minute and say, Nike said it best, like just do it. There's nothing to it but to do it. A lot of times we get wrapped up in like every single detail of mapping out what we're going to do, that by the time we're done figuring out everything that we're going to do in order to execute what we need to execute, the time has passed. You lost the motivation, you lost the momentum, you missed your opportunity. So there's nothing to it but to do it. And a prime example is this podcast. Like, I met Ryan in St. Louis, and we talked about it. We didn't know what it was, what it would look like, but we knew that we had to do something. We knew we had to partner. We knew we had to do something to reach further, to bring more people in, to share our experiences and whatnot. We didn't know what it would look like. And then we were like, well, let's do a podcast. It's like, well, what do we know about podcasts? We don't know nothing. We listened to a couple. Like, how are we going to record it? But we did it. We just did it. And we learned along the way. Like, you have to just dive in the deep end. Just do it. Pull the trigger. Boom. Not realistically unless you have to, but but just do it. Just do it. Like, stop thinking about it and just do it. Take that first step and then take another one. And before you know it, you're going to look back and go, wow, okay, I'm here, or I'm on the way. So that's my little spiel going into this year.
I love it. I think mine is gonna be. I've used this phrase since I was young, but it's not about how you start; it's how you finish. And why I say that is I think if I had to look back and look at what makes us successful, it's not about some of the videos that we've had that's gone viral. It's not about some of the relationships that we've made. It's not about, the schools that we've gotten to speak at. It's not about the places I've been able to travel. It's really just found in the consistency, because everybody that's in this room that's on this podcast right now has been on the journey pretty much with me since the beginning. And there have been some up days, there have been some down days, there have been some up days, there have been some down days. And what typically happens with people is on those down days, that's where they want to quit. Like, they want to quit. They're like, man, I can't do this no more. I don't want to do this. And right when you're getting ready to quit is right when you're actually probably getting set up to have some big explosion into success, but people will never see that because they quit at the bottom. And so success doesn't look like a straight line from the bottom of the chart that just goes all the way to the top. Success looks like a roller coaster. It looks like you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And so one of the analogies I always like to use is like a bamboo tree. Like, bamboo trees, they grow, they go deep. They go really, really deep before they actually start growing above the ground and get super tall and get super firm. And the reason it is because the foundation is getting solid. That's why if you've ever tried to rip bamboo out, it's very difficult, and they keep growing back bigger and bigger and bigger. But before they get to that point, they grow deep first. And so what I would tell you guys is that focus on the consistency of whatever it is that you're trying to do. You're going to have the bad days, but on those bad days, look at it like, oh man, I need this. The sooner I get to that bad day, the sooner I'm going to get to that day of success. If you quit on that bad day, you'll never see the day of success. And so it's not about how you start the race. It's about how you finish the race. But as you are trying to compete in the race, make sure you're consistent in the race. You'll have those people that get, if you look at track runners, you have the guys that get out the block extra fast. But just because you get out the blocks extra fast don't mean that you're going to win the race. And then you got the guys that will start super, super slow, but those fools start gaining speed as the race is going on, and they end up finishing in first place. And so take that analogy. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, and make sure you're consistent. I'd rather take the stronger runner, and the more, he may not be the fastest, he may not be the slowest. I want that guy that's right in the middle that I know is going to be consistent every single time. So that's my advice.
And only you have the power to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Like stop waiting on other people. Like, stop waiting on opportunities. Stop waiting on, this job to call me, this job offer for police officers to be heroes again, for some tragedy to happen, like this bombing, and for officers to be praised. Like, stop waiting for those opportunities and start creating those opportunities, and you'll see change.
Absolutely. So before we end this podcast, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. We've almost had them. How long have we had them now? Like 6 months. So almost a half a year. And it's Thin Line Anthem. And so I really appreciate Thin Line Anthem. That's another business that's being consistent. They're trying to see growth in their business. They are growing in their business. And so we just appreciate them because their growth is helping us grow. And so shout out to our sponsor, Thin Line Anthem. If you guys want to start your journey And for those of you guys that say, hey, I'm going to start working out on January 1, we'll start your workouts with Thin Line Anthem products to go ahead and get you fit in that gym.
Yep. And they're the real deal. We're not just saying that because, they rock with us. Like, we wouldn't rock with them if they weren't the real deal. Like, we know the owner. We talk to the owner all the time. Like, he's the real deal. The supplements are dope. Like, trust us. If you believe in us, you need to believe in them.
Yep, absolutely. So go on their website, thinlineanthem.com. Utilize promo code It's Needed, all caps, no spaces, for 25% off your order. And
30.
Or 30% off your order. Is it 30?
Did I make that up, Billy? Which one is it?
He over here making stuff up.
25.
I'm sorry, y'all. 25.
Big Blue about to get on.
I tried to. Look, I tried to, y'all.
Yeah, you try to slide that in there. 25% off your order, so then order their product. So what we're going to do differently today, actually it's not different, but it is a little different, but not so different. We're still going to do One Has to Go. Yeah, let me see that, Billy, so I make sure I get this right.
Shout out to the first thing.
So shout out to K Fury, one of our podcast listeners and fans. We appreciate you. They did their own One Has to Go Forever, and me, AJ, and Billy have actually discussed this already. Steven hasn't.
Briefly.
So this should be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a little upset. I think AJ and Billy agreed on this one, but I'm gonna give them out first, and then we'll start with Steven, because we'll start with Steven on this one, only because I want to see if he's gonna line up with any of us. So One Has to Go Forever. Number 1, steak. Number 2, shrimp. Number 3, fried chicken. Number 4, ribs.
Okay, give them to me real quick, fast, one more time.
Well, number one is steak. Number 2 is shrimp. Number 3 is fried chicken, and then number 4 is ribs.
Steak.
My man.
What?
My man.
What?
That's why Steven is my guy.
How is that?
Okay,
steak?
okay, listen.
Because Steven is real black.
No, this is
No.
This is
No.
what. Can I break them down for you? On why?
Yes, okay, please
Okay,
do.
shrimp is
Well,
just.
hold on. Before you get to yours, before you break it down,
Okay. Yeah.
Billy, what did you say?
Ribs gotta go.
You crazy, tripping.
Look, I'm not.
Tripping.
Pork is like
Tripping.
kind of too rich, or like there's something about it that's just not that good to me.
AJ, go ahead. AJ, what
I'm
do
not
you
gonna
got?
go that far, Billy. I ain't gonna go that far. Like,
AJ.
ribs are good. Ribs are like they in there, but in the grand scheme of things, ribs got to go.
You tripping.
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay, let me give you mine, and then we'll discuss this. We'll have a discussion. So when I looked at that list, I said I was with Steven. Steak got to go. Hands down, steak got to go. So go ahead and give your explanation.
Okay, so steak can be. It's good when it's good, but when it's not, but the other one, you have to cook it so right that it could be wrong
Even
a
not
lot.
that great a steak is pretty good.
Nah.
Dried
No.
up ribs, like bad ribs. Come on.
Nah, but
Yeah,
listen,
yeah.
dried up steak is like bad. Raw steak is bad. So you
and
can
not
just
only
mess
that,
up with the steak
and
so
with the
much.
other ones, you got options. You can have marinated shrimp with like
Yeah.
the garlic
Shrimp
and
and
stuff
chicken.
like that.
Shrimp and chicken are in there.
You can fry it, but
Yep.
even the ribs, like barbecue sauce, you could do.
I just you said it so barbecue sauce was
Barbecue
that
sauce. You can put steak sauce on a steak, bro.
barbecue sauce.
What, 8-1? That's about as far as you go. You can do a dry rib. You can do a dry rub.
I just was
Barbecue sauce.
I sounded fat, huh? Barbecue sauce.
we could tell that was one of your favorite.
I sounded fat.
How do you
Barbecue sauce.
The thing is, how do you feel like when I get a rib that's so good?
This is what I'm gonna say.
I feel great.
I'm gonna end this
Not
debate
to sound
right here.
lame, but I also hate getting dirty when I eat. So like,
okay,
there's
Billy,
something
you're not
about
helping.
wings and
Okay,
ribs where I'm like, I can't
without
do
getting
it.
racist, that's the white
Billy,
side.
you're not helping me out right now, Billy. All right?
Billy,
Help me.
I feel you on that. What I do is I dip. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
I'm-
a good rib doesn't have to have barbecue sauce.
Yeah. And a good
No.
rib, the meat just fall off the bone.
Yeah.
Too.
No, okay, hold up now. I'm gonna just end it right here. A good steak don't need nothing. As a matter of fact, it's an insult to the chef if you ask for anything to put on the steak because it should be that good. ribs, you gotta put something on. You can't just eat a rib. Like,
So let me
no
ask
one
you,
does that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. And
No
two,
one does that.
Yes, you
No,
can.
I've
Yes, you
never
can.
seen
Yes, you
somebody
can.
just eat
Yes, you
ribs.
can.
I ain't
Yes,
never
you
in my
can.
life
Yes,
seen
you
somebody
can.
eat
He's
ribs.
from the
Yes, you can.
Midwest.
Yes, you can.
They probably-
And let me ask you this: so what? You gonna eat steak? Could you eat steak every day?
Yeah.
Well, you ain't say you have to eat
Billy,
one every day.
Yeah.
You have to pick between. Could you eat ribs every day?
Absolutely, I
With
could.
No.
barbecue sauce, he
I
could.
can mix it up.
No.
Dry rub,
Barbecue
sauce.
I can mix it up, bro. I can't mix up no steak, bro. Like day 2, I'm gonna be tired of it, bro. Can you heat a steak up? And it be
Yes, you can heat a steak, bro. Listen, all right.
It's difficult to heat a steak.
when y'all come out this way.
Throw in some eggs.
When y'all come out this way, I'm gonna
Dip the
fire that
ketchup.
grill up. I'm gonna go get me some steaks, and I'm gonna change y'all's life. You're gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is better than any steak I ever had in my life."
It's definitely
Any-
better than any ribs you've had in your life.
Oh, for sure, definitely,
Oh,
hands
yeah.
down.
You
Hey.
really dislike ribs.
No, that's fine.
No, I love me some ribs, but man,
Steven, that's the white side of AJ and Billy connecting like a synchrony.
I'm mad. I'm mad.
It's like
steak?
connecting right now. Like it's like
Yeah.
connected right now, bro.
What's like? This is the thing about it is when you go to a restaurant and you order a steak compared to a rib, it's a price difference, and that's for a reason. Like,
Well, how many times have you gone to a place and had bad ribs? I've gone to so many places and had a bad steak.
Okay, well,
And then
what?
if you're on a date, you want to be like licking your fingers and stuff with your ribs. Like, no, nobody wants to do that.
Let me ask this last one. I'm gonna mix it up one last time before we get, because I know we gotta go.
Billy, don't ever do that in my ear again. Don't ever do that.
Okay, so if we had, okay, let's say out of the shrimp, chicken, and I'll just keep steak for y'all purposes, which one gotta go?
No, we should just do between chicken and shrimp.
Okay.
Because those are the two. We're arguing about the other two.
Okay.
We should do between chicken and shrimp.
between
One got to
chicken
go.
and shrimp, which one gotta go?
Just me and AJ? Is that
all
okay?
of us.
Oh, all of us.
All right, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Shrimp has to go.
What'd you say, Billy?
The fried chicken has to go.
Oh, it's America's favorite right there. They always say black people love fried chicken, but that's not true. Americans love fried chicken.
Wait, are you serious, Billy?
It's when things are like too savory, I can skip on it. It's good. Like a
And
fry.
that's your brother in crimes that said steak too.
Billy said, wow.
Like,
said-
nobody goes to KFC. That place is terrible.
But KFC.
What about Chick-fil-A?
I love Chick-fil-A.
Popeyes?
Popeyes is good too.
Oh, what shrimp places do you know?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Fried chicken
Thank
sandwich
you.
is great.
Oh,
And you also can't say don't nobody go to KFC when it's a KFC on every block.
Oh,
like
yeah.
they doing something right.
Them hot, I used to love the hot wings back in the day.
man, this was a great one. Has to go.
It was.
The great debate continues.
Podcast group.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Shout
do
out
ha-
to you guys.
I do have one last request before we wrap this episode up. Just going into the next year. Ryan, I need you to do me a huge favor.
Oh, here we go.
And I need you to this is a real one.
Okay.
I need you to pray us into the new year.
Oh,
I need
yeah,
you
absolutely.
Just pray over
Absolutely.
just everybody going into this new year. Pray over like all the chaos, the unrest, the political pandering, the political, all of that. Like I just need you to bring us into this new year the way that you do, brother.
Absolutely. I'll definitely do that. Before I do that, I want to thank Steven for coming out, man. Appreciate you, brother. Love you, man. You my bro. Love all you guys, man. Love AJ, love Billy, all you guys, man. You guys are my brothers for real. And the other thing too is to all of our guests, if you guys want to see something different in 2021 as a podcast, please let us know. What are some things that you like? What are things that you don't like? Just continue to let us know how we can continue to change, because we want to give you guys the best content that keeps you guys captivated and listening to us every single week. Also, man, leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review. We haven't gotten any reviews in a couple weeks, so just leave us a couple reviews. We just like to kind of hear what you guys think about this podcast. And so with that, I'm going to pray us into 2021. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you, and as we get ready to wrap up this last podcast of the year, I just want to give you the thanks and praise for allowing us to do it, allowing us to connect to people all over the world through technology and through a platform like this. I ask that you would just uplift everybody, allow them to get past just all the feeling of insecurities, all the feeling of anxiety, all of the stresses that are going on in their life, the feeling of the unknown, and just allow them to draw to you, just like your word says. Your word says, abide in me. And so I just ask that you would allow all of us to abide in you, Lord. You are the vine and we are the branches, Lord, and we cannot grow fruit on that branch unless we're connected to the vine. So I just ask that you allow us all to stay connected to the vine throughout 2021. Allow us to dive deeper into getting to know you, so that way you can work through us. Allow when people to view or talk to any of us, see any of us, allow them to see you through us. And so my prayer right now is that anybody that's going through a tough time, feeling suicidal, feeling depressed, feeling down, whatever it may be, I ask that you give them the little bit of joy that they need, to give them the spark to continue to thrive in 2021. Allow all of us, like we talked about earlier, to make that decision to make 2021 the best life that we've had just yet. So we love you. We thank you. We give you all thanks, praise, and glory for it's in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And with that, it's been a good year, y'all. Let's say peace to 2020 and what's up to 2021. We'll see y'all next year.
Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce.